All right. Welcome to the show. If you're listening to this in real time, happy December 30th, 2022. Are you getting ready for the new year? I am. A bit. I'm ready. So first and foremost, I want to remind you that your new year does not have to start on January 1st. There's no rule around that, okay? Last year on January 1st, I had a stomach flu, my husband had COVID, my kids both had colds, and nothing about it felt like, whoa, new year. Nothing about it felt motivating or inspiring or honestly even functional. So if for whatever reason, January 1st or even January at all doesn't feel right to you, don't put that pressure on yourself. You can start your new year whenever you're ready. Now, all that being said, if you are ready to kick off the new year, or if you want to listen to this now, save it, and listen to it again when you're actually ready, I want to talk to you about our old friend, self-care. As you've heard me share in the past, I was extremely triggered by this phrase. I mostly think back to when I was a new mom, barely keeping my head above water and hearing the message from social media, from family, from friends, whoever, telling me I needed to make sure I take care of myself. And I'll be honest, what I took that to mean initially was getting a manicure, going to have a coffee or having a haircut. And while at times that may have been solely my interpretation of what they were suggesting, I know that actually, though, that is what people were suggesting to do because they would say, why don't you go get a manicure or get a haircut? And I would sit there and think, but how? I don't understand. I can barely get through a day, and now I have to coordinate childcare so that I can go sit at a nail salon with nothing to do but sit there and think about all the things I'm not getting done. Yeah, it didn't sound appealing. It also did not sound appealing to ask for help, and, at times still really that's even a thing. Like, I just still don't want to do it. But anyway, I think these activities, nails, hair, shopping, all of that, can certainly be part of our self-care. I love them. I do. But they cannot sustain us as our only forms of self-care. The expense, the time required, and if you're experiencing a level of stress, exhaustion, or burnout, these surface level acts just aren't enough. So, what is enough? Well, the answer to that question for me changes a lot. It depends on the season, the day of the week, my energy level, my availability, if the kids are sick, and so on. But no matter what, I've learned from my own therapy and from the many wonderful guests on this show that self-care can and actually needs to be part of our daily, immediate lives in accessible, free, and easy ways. So to help you get started, or to perhaps refresh your current self-care habits, I have a challenge available for you on my website. You can find it at www.sasssays.com/care. It will be linked in the show notes, and it is called Self-Care with Sass. Once you sign up, you'll receive an email from me with all the details. This is a totally doable 5-day and may only require 5 minutes of your time a day challenge just within yourself. So trust me when I say you can do this. All right, so in this case, SASS stands for Stop, Assess, Simplify, Share. This challenge is meant to encourage habitual, accessible, and realistic self-care acts. It is not meant to feel like another add-on to your to-do list. I know that for me to take time for myself, it often means that my kids are in the care of someone else, and that still makes me feel a little wiggy. But this challenge is going to show and encourage you to take moments of self-care with even perhaps your kids in the next room, or quickly between Zoom calls. Say, for example, you have a stressful work day, you're feeling overwhelmed. You can stop, assess how you're feeling, think about what you need, take another moment to simplify that need, as in saying, what can I do for myself right here, right now? Do it. And then share it with me and the others joining you in the challenge on social media. Tag me, use the hashtag selfcarewithsass. I want to see what you're doing out there. And, the sharing part is critical because I know that without hearing other women and what they do for self-care, I'd probably still be thinking that the only way I can take care of myself is by getting a manicure. So we can all help each other by sharing ideas and holding each other accountable. We are in this together, and who knows, someone might post something that you've never thought of before, and voila, new self-care habit. All right. I also want to share that this is a very personally fulfilling moment for me because I originally created this challenge last January. So that would be January 2022. And in creating this challenge and in re-listening to the episode that I aired last year to launch the challenge, I have a point of reference for how my self-care habits have transformed in the last year. I 100% stand by the self-care habits I offer in the challenge, and I often need the reminder to do those things. But all the things in the challenge a year ago actually felt very challenging for me. I had to work hard to do them and to get them done, and I needed constant reminders. Now, a year later, I think of my self-care with a little more depth. As you know, I've been on a pretty intense food and body journey over this past year. And what I'm seeing now is that the food and body journey, which will connect to self-care, which, I think you can make your own connections, but what I'm seeing now is that it's really been a self-love journey. Oh my God, I hate that I just said that. But it's so true. I just had a therapy session where I shared how I'm feeling a big shift happening. The shift from worrying about my body and how it looks and the main focus being the aesthetic and the judgment from others, or the judgment from others that I perceive is happening. A shift from really hating my body and hating myself for how I looked to finding some peace. And it's such a tricky thing to talk about and express, but the peace that I feel does not equate to content. I'm not content with my body, but the angst, the tears, the constant worry, and the judgment, I don't know why, but over the last couple of weeks has subsided more so than ever before. Even when I say more so than ever before, even when I was thin. When I was thin, I was terrified of gaining weight. I was constantly worried about what I ate, how much I worked out, and so on. And I always knew that this was getting to the point, right? I always knew on this journey with the food and body that the point would be that whatever weight my body comes to, there will be so much peace in just being able to eat and just being able to work out and just being able to exist without every thought or every other thought revolving around my body image. And, over the past, just honestly, even 2 weeks, I've found myself enjoying the Peloton. I don't look forward to getting on, but I do, and I actually like it. And I've started cooking again and drinking more water, and not from the standpoint of, hey, I've set this rule or goal for myself and I have to check it off a list, but those things seem to just be happening more naturally. And I'm starting to have a greater and deeper understanding of what Tara Brunette, Jessie Jean speak about when they talk about getting to this place where you just stop thinking about what you're eating. And, again, over the last few weeks, I've just been mentally referring to this as my healing era. I will look back on the last 2 years and go, wow, what an era, what a healing era. And, what's funny is that actual body weight wise, I am literally the heaviest I've ever been in my life, including pregnancies. And now that I am here at that point, but also knowing I'm in my healing era, I actually now wholeheartedly believe that this is when the weight will start falling off. In fact, that is my current little affirmation. I've shared on the show over the course of my many book readings and podcast interviews and listening to other podcast interviews that no one person's manifesting mantra or affirmation felt quite right for me when it came to my body, but this one does. The weight is falling off me now. I get it. I really think the clicks are clicking and the things are happening that are supposed to be happening. And now, don't get me wrong, it's still an ongoing process, right? I still struggle with my body and body image, but I am much quicker at catching the negative thoughts. I am much more easily reframing those negative thoughts. And most importantly, I'm actually believing the reframes. And there is no one thing that happened that changed this. And I'll get to that in a minute. But at the time that I'm writing this, I am reading The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. So far, I've read through the first two agreements, which are the first one is be impeccable with your word, and the second is don't take anything personally. And when I apply this to my self-love journey this past year, it hits so hard, particularly the second agreement, which does build greatly off of the first. So, you should just probably go read it. But he talks about how from childhood we do this thing. When we hear an opinion and we believe it, that we then make an agreement and it becomes part of our belief system. So his example is of a young girl joyfully singing around her house and dancing, and her mom comes home and has a terrible headache. But the girl keeps singing and singing and singing, and finally the mom snaps and says, "Shut up, you have an ugly voice, can you just shut up, I have a headache." And this little girl hears this opinion of you have an ugly voice. She believes it, internalizes it, and then subconsciously makes this agreement with herself that she has a terrible voice. People are unhappy when they hear her voice, and she develops this whole complex around singing in front of people. Even sometimes talking in front of people was difficult for her. And he goes on to say about how this mother's poor choice of words, which was breaking the first agreement to be impeccable with your words, was a reflection of the mother and not the daughter. But in taking it personally, the daughter is the person that feels the pain. This is kind of a tough example, right? Because it's hard to imagine a mom saying that to a kid. But the point is that if we don't take anything personally, if we know that whatever negativity comes from someone else is truly about them and not us, then that negativity that is coming from them does not transfer to us. It stays with them. And when I think about that with my own thoughts, it makes a lot of sense. So the thoughts that I have that are negative, what happens if I stop taking them personally? What happens if I stop believing them? What happens if I choose not to believe them as fact and I just don't take it personally? If I get dressed and something feels tighter or something shows a stomach roll or something and my first gut thought is, gosh, that looks awful. If I don't take it personally that that's just some made up BS in my head, which if you go back over time and look at diet culture, like it probably is some made up BS. Okay, you see where I'm going? Okay, so when I think about my body image, at some point, someone, a gymnastics coach, a TV commercial, a celebrity interview in a magazine, an immature boy at school told me that I was big or I was fat, or that if I eat too much of XYZ food, that means I'm lazy or weak, and all the other horrible messages that diet culture feeds us. I heard those opinions at whatever time in my life. I internalized them, believed them, and since then, I've been in a spiritual agreement with my body that it will never be good enough. You heard me say earlier that even when I was thin, it was never good enough. At heavier weights, it's certainly not good enough. In fact, it's bad. And so what breaks these agreements? It's the truth. The truth breaks the agreements. And so what is the truth in this case? The truth is that my value as a human being is not tied to my weight. My worth is not tied to what I eat or how much I work out. I value speaking to myself and treating my body in a way that I'd want my daughter to treat her body and speak about her body. I value peace. Like I value, I think because I've never in my life been able to eat without thinking about it, right from a time that I remember. I'm sure as a baby and a toddler, I ate without thinking about it. But from the point of recollection, I mean, almost every time I ate, I thought about it. whether it was a pat on the back for eating so good, or a slap on the wrist for eating so bad, or this is so good, I want more, but I shouldn't, or, gosh, someone else is eating a salad and I chose a sandwich. What's wrong with me? Like every single time, that not having that go on in my brain all day long, every day, like it's so peaceful. And to not shame myself into exercising is so peaceful, and I really value that. And so this shift that I'm talking about over the last few weeks, and the shift that I'm noticing about what self-care actually means to me, is like this next level of inner peace. Specifically around the body, it shifted from this outward judgment and this outward, pressure. But now I just want to feel good. I do want to look good, but not because of some standard that diet culture is holding me to, but because I want to. And I really feel that difference in my bones. I think I've said it before, but I didn't really believe it. And I shared with my therapist that in being at this heaviest weight, and I don't know, I just started feeling like a desire to take care of myself. Like the way I described it to her was, I was sitting there, I'm like, how did I gain more weight? Like, how did that happen? And I identified two things. Really, I stopped a lot of movement, and in getting busy and sick, we've been doing takeout and ordering in a lot, and I love that. But there was a night where I was gonna order in, and not a single option was interesting to me, which is fascinating because in my old life, in my old brain, ordering in was an opportunity to, be a little bad with food and cheat a little. And it's like I've allowed myself to do that to the point where I just I don't even want it. I don't even care. I just want good quality food. And so I don't know, it's just such a mind-boggling thing to go from one way your whole life to another. But anyway, this time last year, when self-care to me meant deep breathing, meant drinking water, meant doing all the things on that challenge. There's way more on there. Go check it out, please. I needed to do those things. For me, that was a stepping stone. I needed those things to be my self-care, because similar to when I started my antidepressant, it was I needed the antidepressant so that I could just function enough to do those things. And I needed to do all of those, and I don't even know what I want to call it, just very tangible, actionable self-care things so that I could make room in my mental and emotional space to do the inner healing. And so, again, a year ago, I was really desperate for someone to go, here's the roadmap. Here is exactly what you need to do. Let's stick with the body, example that I've been using. And I was absolutely convinced that, reading the intuitive eating book and doing that would change my life overnight. It didn't. My journey this year in particular, gosh, includes so many self-help books, includes interviewing so many experts and women with stories, and listening to other podcasts and taking courses. And oh my gosh, it includes weekly therapy. And I was so desperate. I kept doing them because I wanted one thing to just be boom. And the thing is that when I look back now, I know it doesn't work that way, but you want it to when you're that desperate, right? But when I look back now, I can go, oh, well, I took this from that course. I took Y from, that podcast. I took X from that conversation. I took this exercise from that book. I took this journal prompt from the other book. And It is like there is no set roadmap. There is no one size fits all for whatever it is you're working on about yourself. Me, it's obviously been body and food. So for whatever it is for you, there is no one size fits all. There is no one, cookie cutter, here's your 10-step plan. You have to take a little bit from everything. And I don't say this to discourage you. I say this to validate you. Because me a year ago, again, like just sticking with intuitive eating, I like really thought that just reading that book was going to change everything overnight. I was going to be a completely different person with a completely different body image and food thing. And like, even though I like really in my heart of hearts knew that was not realistic, I was so disappointed when I woke up the next morning and like not a lot had changed. And so again, I'm saying this to validate you, because if you're picking up that one book, or if you're picking up that one course, or you're, listening to that one podcast episode that you are just desperate is going to change everything, and you wake up the next morning and you didn't, and it didn't change everything, that's normal. I'm saying this to say that's normal. I'm saying this to encourage you to keep going, keep reading, keep listening, because we know that change and evolution happen piece by piece. But when you really, really want something, like I really, really wanted to stop hating my body, I didn't want to believe it. I had this like sense of false hope, I guess, that doing one particular thing would change everything. And, there's not one book or course that has the secret sauce to change it all. Like, sure, it has an ingredient to the sauce, and I need that ingredient. It's vital. But my unique sauce, if you will, is made up of the ingredients that I've taken from each and every thing I've done and read and learned and all of the things. And it's such a challenging thing when you're just like in it with yourself, right? But anyway, my point is keep going. Whatever it is you're working on, keep going. Because I'm by no means, like I said, I'm by no means healed or, wipe my hands of it, like all good, love my body, love life, everything's fine. But out of nowhere, a very significant shift has happened. Look at me, seemingly out of nowhere, right? Seemingly waking up overnight. But I know the work that's gone into that seemingly overnight feeling is a lot of therapy, a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of coursing, a lot of interviewing. And maybe that's not your path, right? Maybe your path is different. But just in my experience, yeah, all of our paths are unique, and we need to take a little bit of something from everyone else's who's gone before us in order to do it for ourselves. And getting just really connecting all the dots for you, just in case there's any lingering questions. It's, like that, how I speak to myself now is self-care. How I think about myself, how I reframe thoughts, how I make choices with less struggle, as far as like water, Peloton, all those things. Like that is the deeper level of self-care that I feel like I've gotten to this year. And so, the last thing I want to ask of you is, I'd really like to know who you are. Who are you that's listening? This saying and doing all this like matters to me, and it's helpful for me, and that's enough for me to do this, truly. But it would be so wonderful to know who you are that's listening and hearing this and relating. Because I want to feel like I'm not alone in this too, right? Like I'm sharing this so that you know you're not alone, but I want to know too. I want to know that I'm not alone. And I want to know I want to know if this hits home for you, because I'd also like to have the content that I create and share continue to matter to you. So anyway, if I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible. If you listen to this and you like any one thing about what you've heard, or it feels good to you, or it hits home for you, anything, I will post something about this episode to my Instagram feed. All I would love for you to do is throw a blue heart in the comments if you've listened to this. And I don't care if we went to college together and we met once and didn't really talk, and you might feel like, oh, does she gonna think it's weird that I listen? No. I don't care if, I dated your brother in middle school. I don't care who you are. I just want to know who you are, because going to this new year, I'm really wanting to make a more genuine connection with you, for your sake, but mostly for mine. So anyway, I hope you had a great holiday. I hope you're going to enjoy the New Year celebration. And yeah, that's it. Keep your peace. Figure out what you need. And whatever journey you're on, keep going. All right. Bye.